welcome back to the channel. Today I have a night sky using the Dream Big stamp set, and I am going to do some masking. So up on the screen you're seeing the inks that I'm going to use: the lemon, Vegas strip, no surprise, acid wash, and sugar plum. For the stamping I am using the Dream Big stamp set and the ear-resistible stamp set. For my masking, I am using a removable sticker paper by Rock. So I start out my project by laying out the stamp with the moon on it from the Dream Big, which is absolutely precious. I stamp that onto smooth cardstock as well as the sticker paper using the Eclipse Black ink. Now, for the mask part of it, I dried it with my heated tool. And the reason I did that is that paper, even though it's more matte than some stickers, it's still a slick surface, and I wanted that dry before I came in to fussy cut it. Now, for the sake of everybody, I didn't leave in all of the fuzzy cutting. The key to fuzzy cutting is when you're masking, is to get right up on the black line and hold your scissors with your dominant hand and turn the paper with your non-dominant hand. And it's better to be inside the lines than outside, because as you ink blend over it, you'll leave a white space. So you'll see that I left some of the images off, part of the little teddy bear that he's holding, and some of the stars, and that's because Color Hive inks for the most part are compatible with Copics, so I didn't care about coloring over them. So before I get started, I am bringing in what I use for my foam dome blenders. Those are by scrapbook.com, and I just created a document and with squares like a table, and then I put down some Velcro, and that is how I store my all of my dome foams. And I do that for all of the ink lines that I own, and if you're interested in that storage system, you can find that as a free download on my website. So I'm also bringing in some new ink blending tools that I found on Amazon, and they come every color of the rainbow, and they have small tips on them. Some are finer than others, and that's what I was showing. So now that I've got my ink out and my image is masked, meaning I've got the sticker on top of the main image, I come in with the lemon ink and I put in a light blend over the entire moon and cloud image so that I get the halo of the moon glow. Then I come in with acid wash. Now I'm going to tell you this, that the neon inks are not water reactive, and that comes into play later on. The other Color Hive inks that are not part of the neon family, those are color reactive. So I chose the acid wash being part of the neon because I knew that it wasn't going to react, and that even when I add water later, that color was going to shine through. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Then I go over that with Vegas strip. Now these blend beautifully together. There's not an issue with the two inks blending. And I go in sort of heavy with the Vegas strip, and that's because I am making the night sky, right? And I put a couple coats on there, and you're seeing me. It's easier for me to turn my paper and blend. That way I get a better circular motion, or the effect of the glow of the moon. I am coming in with sugar plum next, and that is a very dark purple, and I'm putting that towards the outsides of my scene, and that's to give the illusion of the night sky getting darker as it gets away from the moon. Now I will tell you that I do repeat this later on in the card making process. Right now I'm just trying to get an overall feel, and I end up at some point cutting the card panel down to 3 3/4 by 5. So just keep that in mind so you don't have to get a perfect blend on that sugar plum, because I'm going to come back in and create my vignettes more. So again, I'm coming back with that acid wash and the Vegas strip right now so that I can deepen those colors and get more of a blue sky. I then bring in my distress sprayer and I lightly mist that, giving droplets, and I pick that up with a dry baby wipe. And you can see now where the Vegas or the acid wash is coming up through the Vegas strip and the sugar plum. To create my stars, I use my Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof watercolor paint, and then I dry that, and I dry it thoroughly, because next I'm going to reveal the masked part of it, and then I'm going to use my Copic color. Now you need to remember that Copics are not compatible with Dr. P.H. Martin, so either you do your splatter last once you have your coloring done, or you make sure that you have your mask on and you dry it really well. I come in with my crafter's wand to remove that sticker paper, and you're going to see that comes up pretty easily. Probably the hardest part of it was because I had fingernails, right? Otherwise, if I had used maybe a tweezers instead of my fingers, we would have gone a little bit faster. Right now, I am starting my Copic coloring. And I come in with a Y11. It is my lightest color that I'm going to use. And I start outlining on the bear. So, and I'm going to point this out in just a second, but we'll talk about it starting now. So the moon is the brightest part on this card. So that means the light source is coming from the moon. So the bear's back of his head, the back of his arm, his bum are going to be the thing that the light is shining on the most, which typically when we color, we think of the backside of an object as being the darkest. So in my mind, so that I can remember that, I come in with my Y11 and I highlight that area because I don't want to lose it, because it goes against what my brain wants to tell me when I color. Because I typically, and that's where I'm coming in right now, showing you where the light source is with my crafter's wand. On the top part of the bear, which was going to be the darkest, like where his belly is, the top of his face, I come in with an E57, and that is my darkest brown, and I start mapping out my shadows. Because he is on the moon, I don't want him super dark, but you still have facial characteristics. You still have the roll of the belly and the crease in the leg, so that's why I go in with that E57. Then from there, I come in and I go over that E57 and extend that with my E55. And right now, you're looking at this saying, what kind of mess is she creating? And I'm not going to lie, that's really what it looks like. It looks like a hot mess, and it will until the end. Now I come over that with an E53, and I blend out the E55, and I extend my shadow. Okay, so I'm pushing back this shadow, so the shadow is actually getting smaller up towards the belly, but the E53 is the actual color of the bear. Then I add in the rest with the E51. I also use the E51 on his snout part and on the pads of his feet. Now this is the scary part. I come back in, I think, with a Y13 at the end. I kind of fast forwarded through that. I lost a little bit of my shadow, so I came in with my E57 and my E55 again. And I repeated that process so that the bear wasn't so scary. And until I color that moon, he looks illuminated and he looks crazy. Trust me on this process. You want to keep going. Keep going with your coloring. Don't stop, and just keep blending until you get what looks good to you. So again, I come in with the Y13 and I put the glow on the very back of his arm, on his back ear, on his bum, and he looks terrible. And I come in and I with the R20, 21, and 22, I do the exact same thing with the heart that's hanging. And so the darkest part of the heart is on the right and the lightest is on the left because it's closest to the moon. For the stars, even the ones that have been ink blended over, I come in with the Y19 and I just color them. I don't really care about how bright or how dark they are. I just want them colored. Now for the clouds, anything white really isn't white. It's got gray tints in it and it's got different colors that it's reflecting. So I color the different humps of the clouds with a C1, a C0, and a C2. And obviously the part of the cloud that's the closest to the moon, I leave brighter. And then I bring in a BG11 and an R00. And the reason I do that is because it's reflective and I want the idea of an iridescent cloudy thing. It's like when you think of a sunset, you see all the different colors in the cloud. So the R00 is picking up the color of the heart. And I also come in with the Y11 to pick up part of the hint of the moon, the yellow. And then when I'm finished with adding those colors, I went in with a colorless blender just to lighten it up and to kind of blend them a little bit. Now comes the moon. And I go in with the Y19 on the far left, which is going to be the darkest part of the moon. And then I take that to a Y13 and I push that back. And then I blend with that Y11. And do you see how nicely that Y11 blends with the lemon ink, the Color Hive ink? It's amazing how that kind of all came together. I got very lucky. That little bunny that's hanging, that the bear's holding, I just went over that with a C1. Now I am coming in with those blender brushes, the fine detail. I ended up not needing the blue. I just used the lemon. And where some of the white spots were, where my mask wasn't 100%, I added some of the lemon. And I went in with a very, very light touch. If you go in heavy, it's going to look bizarre. In fact, at the top part of that heart, I did go in a little heavy. So I have to come back in and adjust my shading for the rest of my blending. So I come in with the acid wash because it's the lighter color and it'll cover the stars. So by adding the acid wash, I'm fixing the brightness of the moon. I am also covering some of the the paint droplets that are serving as stars. And what that does is it gives dimension in the scene. So that way you have the illusion that some of the stars are really far back and you have the illusion that some are more forward, just like you would if you were looking at a night sky realistically. I hope that makes sense. And I didn't love my shape, but I had to stop because the acid wash and the lemon were going to create a green. So I had to leave that little bit of a halo. In hindsight, I wish I had done it a little bit more round, but I still think that the card turned out cute as a button. So from here, I come in with the sentiment from Dream Big, and it just says Dream Big on it, and I use that, I stamp that down with the Eclipse Black Color Hive ink. And then I come in after I'm starting to see all of my shadows and highlights. I come in with a white gel pen and I put some spots and speckles into the clouds, and I also put it on the bear and on the heart. So what you didn't see was off camera. That's when I had trimmed my panel down to the 3 3/4 by 5, and I come in with a sugar plum, and I come in with a really nice dark vignette. And again, I am still covering up some of those stars and some of the water reaction, and so you're getting all kinds of depth and dimension. Now, being true to myself, I popped that up on foam adhesive and used some wet glue, so I have just a second or two of wiggle time if I have a hard time getting it centered onto my metallic silver cardstock that I'm using as a mat. And you'll see that I went back with some glue because it was still a little too tacky. It's the adhesive that was super tacky, and I knew I wasn't going to have any wiggle room. And then from there, I put this on a Eclipse Black A2 sized card base, and I think it turned out great. And because it's me, and I can never be 100% happy with anything, I came back in with my gel pen and added more stars. And truthfully, I think that brought the scene to life. On the inside of the card, I used the white cardstock that I used as my kind of stamp off to do that. And then I adhered that onto the inside. I stamped that with fog, and I put the two stamps inside. So anyway, thank you for sticking with me, and have a great day. Bye-bye.